Week 9 in the SEC. Who will remain undefeated in the conference? Would it be LSU or Texas A&M? And will the SEC referees get scared of more drinks being thrown on the field? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. They're free and available wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Chris Marler, host of Locked On Gamecocks, and is it still the College Football Uncensored podcast? Is that what y'all call it?
Dude, we're gonna change it back. SCS has sold like their third company, so we might as well. But yeah, Locked On Gamecocks, Fourth and Wrong. Also, Vern Dumquist on Twitter.
Yeah. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, Marler, we got 6 games in the conference, so we'll spend each segment kind of hitting on 2 each. But real quick, overall thoughts on what we saw last week. We were right, man. I kept harping on Texas had not really been tested, and you were right too. You said Georgia was going to bring it, and man, did they bring it.
I said it with a lot more F words, but yeah, we were both right, and it always feels good to be right. I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, it's down the dumps on a couple of the games for sure. But if there's one thing I do love more than anything, it's my corgi named Pepper. My girlfriend Allie, in case she's listening, and then also being right. And that third one especially, I love being right. And that Texas game was hilarious. I will say the thing that disappointed me the most in the game, and it seems to be a consistent theme, and we don't like the refs interjecting themselves into key moments for all these different games is so annoying. And like, I'm not saying it directly impacted or the outcome of any of the games, but man, that Georgia Texas game, the refs were all involved in this in the second half, especially in so many key moments. The Bama Tennessee game, when you had 26 combined flags, which is the second most of any game they've had since like 2019. It's just crazy. So, but we're getting into the thick of it, man. It's been a lot of fun. It's like you pointed out a bunch of times. There's been an upset every week, so I can't wait to see what happens this week.
Yeah, I want to harp too on the fact that when the refs made the call on the pass interference, once they make the call, once everything's decided and announced, it's not a reviewable play.
Right.
For everybody who keeps going, well, they got it right. It doesn't matter. It was they got the play call wrong, and that's it. It's not. There's no going back.
Yeah,
they did go back retroactively because the Texas students threw stuff on the field.
Yeah, I'll get a DeLorean right now, Gordy, and I'll go back in time 5 days from now and throw all sorts of litter in the end zone over there in Knoxville because Ryan Williams is getting held like a newborn baby, which was just a lot. So there you go.
By the way, it's crazy to think this. Do you know 12 weeks from this Monday, we will crown a national champion in Atlanta? Crazy to think that. 12 weeks. Yeah. You'll be there?
Here right now. So let's go Georgia Tech.
Are you tailgating already for the national championship game?
Let me tell you something about the officiating. I'm out of bottles because I've thrown them at them, but I've been drinking. I got some things to say.
I can't wait for a crappy Miami versus Oregon national championship. It's going to be like,
that would be kind of sick, though.
What are we going to talk about on Locked On SEC? Like,
that was the worst. That was the whole thing last year. It was like me and you were on the show, and I was like, what do we do? Like, this is the first time in like 16 years. Anyway,
I was there. I was talking to Ryan McGee on the sideline. I'm like, this sucks. Washington, Michigan. Little did we know that was Bama's future loser of a head coach on the sideline. Yeah. Let's get into it. Start with 11 a.m. Central on ESPN. It is 4-3 Oklahoma at number 18 Ole Miss. The Rebels, FanDuel's got them a 20-point favorite. A few notes on this one. Marler, obviously new OC for OU. They fired Seth Luttrell. Joe John Finley takes over play calling duties. He was Ole Miss's passing game coordinator back in 2020, so some connections there.
Yeah.
Jackson Arnold going to take back over quarterback for OU, so new OC and back to Jackson Arnold at quarterback. For Ole Miss, they've lost 2 of their last 3 games. They're coming off a bye week. It sounds like Deion Burke's questionable. I'm sorry, that's for OU. Deion Burke's questionable. Gavin Sawchuk, their running back, doubtful. For Ole Miss, Trey Harris questionable, their star wide receiver. Prince Iman Mielen is probable, and running back Matt Jones is doubtful. So just some notes on this one. But what are your thoughts? OU has been dreadful at Ole Miss.
Prince Ali. I am fired up about this one. Listen, I've been making my picks every week. Okay, shameless plug. LouisianaSports.net, your favorite website. You talk about it all the time. Big Picks Energy every week. Been pretty average on the year. Okay, about 50%. But lock of the week is 7-1. Lock of the week this week, Ole Miss is going to destroy Oklahoma. Oklahoma is ranked. I'm glad they're making a change at the offensive coordinator position. People have talked about, including myself, how they're not SEC ready. But let me also point this out here, guys. If you think they're not SEC ready, keep in mind they got so mad that in the middle of the season they fired a coordinator already, and they replaced him with someone named Joe John. So that's pretty SEC ready, if you ask me. They have ranked 107th or worse in 7 major categories, including points per game, yards per game, rush and passing yards per game, yards per carry, yards per attempt, and yards per play. The thing that scares me the most, they have one of the worst offensive lines in the country. Last week in South Carolina, they gave up 9 sacks to 9 different players. They've given up 15 total sacks in their last 2 games. They ranked second to last in the country in total sacks allowed. That Ole Miss defense, I know that they didn't record a sack in the game in Baton Rouge. Still one of the best front sevens and front fours in the country. I think they will be harassing Jackson Arnold all day long. Ole Miss by 1,000.
Here's the other part. What if, because Jackson Arnold is a 5-star quarterback, and their wide receivers, look, if they get Deion Burks back, that'll help out a lot. But all the other wide receivers that are hurt or injured, whatever. What if he looks good this week, though? Then it's a real indictment on Seth Luttrell going, dude, what were you doing? Like, what the hell offense were you running? So just putting that out as a possibility. But I'm with you. Ole Miss, I think their mentality now is, look, we got 2 losses. It sucks, but let's run the table. I mean, that's got to be their mantra this week. Run it up. Do what you got to do. Send a message to the playoff committee. We're going to win out. We're going to be one of the hottest teams out there.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they're coming off a loss and a bye, and they're off a loss under Kiffin. They're like 8-4 in the regular season in those games, and 2 of those 4 losses were in year 1. So it's like they have been really good coming off a loss. I expect this to be a rejuvenated Ole Miss team. We don't know what's going to happen when they play Georgia, but they do have everything still in front of them if they can win out.
Yeah. So you're taking, I think we're both taking Ole Miss to win. You're taking Ole Miss to win big. Cover that
big
20.
Time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you there. At 11:45 Central on the SEC Network, it'll be 4-3 Arkansas at 1-6 Mississippi State. And it's kind of interesting. Like, Arkansas's got the 4 wins. Mississippi State only has 1. Yet this feels like the way Mississippi State's been playing lately, like they're scoring points, and like it kind of feels like arrow pointing upward for Mississippi State. For Arkansas, their fans are a little down right now. Like, oof. Jaquindon Jackson is listed as doubtful, so it sounds like he may not go. They're going to have to lean on their freshman running back, Braylon Russell, who Sam Pittman is excited about, said they're going to have to get him going. Mississippi State, they're looking for their first SEC win after a 6th consecutive loss last week. Arkansas's offense still ranks number 4 in the SEC, but they got to get going here.
So I'm going to call my shot. There's going to be several upsets this week from teams that aren't favored. I'm going to start here. And I know that he watches the show. He's a big fan of you. Who isn't, to be honest? Michael Van Buren, the quarterback from Mississippi State. Listen, this is a kid who is a true freshman that has started 3 games. Those 3 games have all been against top 15 opponents. 2 of them have been on the road. He has 6 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions in those games. The last 2 games, listen, it sounds foolish by saying, well, they only lost by 10 points to these 2 teams. If it's Mississippi State, I feel like you kind of would take that. Arkansas comes in this game with the number 4 ranked rushing offense in the SEC in rushing yards per game, and also in rushing touchdowns with 20 total this year. Mississippi State rush defense not been good. Obviously, we saw what happened out there in the desert when they played Arizona State. They've also allowed 15 touchdowns on the ground this year, which is most in the SEC. But if you were going to pull off an upset, and they're a touchdown underdog in this game, what's the first thing you need to do is probably win the turnover battle, right? Arkansas is really, really bad at turning the football over. They are tied for the second most turnovers out of any SEC team in the league, with 12 this season. I think with the running back being out, I think with Taylor Green, who I think is really exciting to watch, but he turns the ball over all the time. I think that they win the turnover battle. They are able to put up a lot of yards in the air, and I think they win.
State is going to be without their freshman wide receiver Mario Craver in this one. He has 350 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year. But Van Buren, to me, you kind of touched on it. 3 touchdown passes in each of his last 2 games, and it's against Georgia and A&M.
Right.
I mean, these are 2 of the stronger defenses in the SEC on paper. And so, yeah, I mean, against Arkansas, they're going to have to wreak havoc, and it's on the road, and it's early, and it might be sleepy. I've been saying it for 2 weeks. Mississippi State's going to get a win on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
When is it may be this week. One other note on this game, Marler. I saw this. Former South Carolina linebacker Bengali Kamara is going to be at this game. Mississippi State is hosting him on an official visit. He played in 4 games for South Carolina this year. I didn't even know you could do that. You can go be host. You leave your team in the middle of the season and you get to go host it on an official visit somewhere else. It just feels really weird.
Yeah, check out the episode of Locked On Gamecocks that's just titled "Quitting" on the team, and that is about my man. Who, listen, I get it. This day and age, go make the most of your last year, because this is his last year. He'll be of eligibility he'll have coming up. But he also had the most snaps out of any he had the most snaps of any game all season in that Ole Miss game right before he decided to redshirt. And so I don't know. It's just an odd situation that is now the current state of college football.
Like Jaheim Otis, who did the same thing at Alabama, can he go be hosted by A&M this weekend? That's just really weird.
You have to ask his agents.
Yeah, it feels like you would have to wait till the end of the year, right? What, the last game of the season?
Yeah. My favorite part of the Jaheim Otis thing was, one, when I was writing an article about it, I couldn't figure out how to spell his name, because I was like, I feel like it's with 2 E's. And then I saw it spelled both ways. He changed the spelling of his name on August 10th. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. But my other favorite part was in the little graphic that his agents made in Canva, they used a picture of the Alabama Stadium from 2002 with a scoreboard that doesn't exist anymore. Unbelievable.
Well, we'll find out if Marler will change the name of spelling of his name coming up after this. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. First, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. Look, PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long over on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long over at PrizePicks. Go check them out today. As we dive back into it with our buddy Chris Marler, looking ahead to SEC Week 9. By the way, thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. Come back on Monday. We'll give you our winners and losers of the weekend. Marler, we head to the night, 7:45 Eastern on SEC Network. It's 2-5 Auburn at 3-4 Kentucky. The Cats a 2.5-point home favorite, which feels weird watching Kentucky get blown out in these, losing these games recently. And it's like you're still a home favorite, but that's how bad Auburn is. Auburn 0-4 in SEC play. Kentucky 1-4. Man, it's just like, who wants to win less, Kentucky or Auburn? That's what this feels like.
I called my shot a week ago saying Georgia was going to go on the road as an underdog and win by 10+ points. Earmuff it, babe. My Auburn fan girlfriend's going to be pissed to hear this because every time I pick them, they've lost. They are going to win by 10+ points against Kentucky. This is the craziest stat I have ever seen all season, at least, Gordy, if not maybe of all time. This is from Ben Stevens on Twitter, and you may have seen this already. There are 27 FBS offenses that average at least 6.5 yards per play this season. There are 29 defenses that allow 5 yards or less per play this season. Only 7 teams in the country do both. Texas, Penn State, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Indiana, Army, and Auburn. The 6 other teams not named Auburn are combined 36-4 this season. Auburn is somehow 2-5 and in the midst of all of that. Like, they have been really, really good between the 20s. Listen, we give Peyton Thorne a lot of crap because of how bad he has looked, especially in that Cal game. Outside of that Cal game, he's got 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the year. The completion percentage is not great, but like completions per yards per completion is like 5th best in the country. Yards per attempt is like 11th, and then their yards per play is 13th. Now, Kentucky, on the other hand, ranks 106 or worse in opponent's completion percentage, opponent's yards per attempt, opponent's quarterback passer rating, all those things. They are really bad. But the thing that they are the worst at is the quarterback position, because Brock Vandagriff is the worst quarterback in the SEC right now, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Auburn is 3-9 in since the start of 22. They're 3-9 in road games, with I think 7 of those 9 losses coming by double digits. But here's the thing: the 3 wins, they came against teams that had losing records and that were inferior competition. And Kentucky is both of those things. They are inferior, and they have a 3-4 record. Auburn gets their first SEC win by double digits this weekend in Kroger Field at the Krog.
Yeah, crazy to think Peyton Thorne has 1 more passing yard than Nico Iamaleava right now. Like, we were literally week 1, Marler, talking about Nico as a dark horse Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
And Peyton Thorne's just ahead of him. Peyton Thorne's got more passing yards than Diego Pavia, Quinn Ewers, DJ Lagway. So it's kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective. Did you see, though, Hugh Freeze said old Towns Magoo, whatever the hell the kicker's name is, they're going to use him for long kicks, but they're going to go with Alex McPherson if they're within 35 yards or closer. That's not what I want to hear from my team that's struggling, that's 0-4 in the SEC.
I also love the fact that Hugh Freeze was like, I did some soul searching. I got to coach these boys harder. I got to go back to my roots. Towns Magoo, an all-time name, brother. Towns Magoo. That is, oh my gosh, it sounds like something you step in and don't want to step in. Also, the Alex McPherson
McGuff, like, you know, what wouldn't you pronounce it that way?
I would have told everyone it was McGuff. Every single no, it's actually McGuff. No, we're gonna call it. It sounds like somebody said it when he was little, and they were like, "Nah." Like that's like a situation like where you see like someone's like, "Oh yeah, I call my mama my grandpappy ma because I couldn't pronounce grandma when I was little." And it's like, did you not pronounce your own last name? You just started calling yourselves Magoo. That's gross.
Or like if your grandma starts calling you Kool-Aid and you just make it your permanent name. You know?
The fact that was reversed. She couldn't pronounce his name, so they started saying it Kool-Aid. Unbelievable.
My wife, we were watching football the other night. She goes, "Wait, the guy's name is Kool-Aid?" I'm like, we don't even need to get it.
We can't get into that.
It's long of a story. 2:30 Central on ABC. It is number 21 Mizzou at number 15 Bama. And this line earlier in the week, Marler, on FanDuel was Bama minus 13.5. It has now gone up to Bama minus 16.5. Why, you may ask? Well, our good friend who has robotic features, Pete Thamel, reporting that Brady Cook is officially doubtful for this game, has been extremely limited in practice, called his outlook for this week pessimistic. I'll just say this, Marler, if they have to start Drew Pine, guaranteed Bama win.
I just my Pete Thamel impression that I just did is probably very annoying to everyone that was watching it, but
what he does.
If you want to have a laugh this weekend, watch Pete Thamel waiting for the question to be finished questioning and being answered. It's like he's doing outtakes for something that's like, okay, like just pretend like you're interested in what I'm saying. Yeah, so here's the thing with this game. I think that this game, the biggest thing it's going to come down to is long passing plays. Brady Cook he's been really inefficient at long passing plays and being accurate in the deep ball. He does do a good job making sure only his guy can get it. I don't know if Drew Pine is going to be that guy. He's 10 of 21. I think on the season, he's played in 4 games, but he's got like less than 5 yards per attempt. They have not really tried to stretch the field. A lot of times where they're most consistent in Missouri's offense is, you know, the intermediate routes and anything between like 8 to 12 yards. You see them getting a lot of east and west with Luther Burden. That's not how they're going to win this game. Whoever is able to complete deep balls most effectively and often is going to win this game. Missouri has the best defense in terms of allowing 20-plus yard passing plays in the SEC. They've only allowed 11 all season, which ranks third nationally. When Alabama's offense is at its best, it's when Jalen Milroe is throwing the ball deep, because that is one of the parts of his game that he is actually best at. Like, he gets a lot of crap for how bad he has been at times. Also, I don't know why that blue glove. Go back to that picture. What's that blue glove doing? What's going on here?
This is actually last year. That's I think that's last year's picture.
It's in a very awkward situation. It's in a Towns Magoo situation over there. So here's the thing. I think Milroe is at his best when they're throwing the ball deep, not when you're just throwing it. He had 50 dropbacks against Tennessee last week. 50. I mean, that's insane to me. So I think in this game, you have got to take your deep shots. You've got to try to figure out ways to scheme people open downfield. Before Brady Cook was injured, I'm not saying this to pick on Mizzou. Mizzou's just not a very good football team. We've seen them be in battles like all season long. They've played 4 games against FBS Power 4 opponents. They're 3-1 in those games, but the 3 wins were all by 6 points or less. The one loss was the only one that was on the road, and it was by 31 points against a ranked A&M team. I think Bama puts it together this weekend. It looks a lot like how it looked against Wisconsin before their bye week before Georgia. I think they go into the bye week with some confidence before they get LSU in 2 weeks.
But what's wild is even if Mizzou loses this one, you're 6-2. The rest of their schedule is Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Like, you're basically playing like the dregs of the the SEC West. Dude, like there still could be a 9-10 win Mizzou team, just based on their schedule. A few more notes here though on Mizzou. Brady Cook doubtful. So again, it sounds like it's going to be Drew Pine this weekend. Nate Noel is going to be out, the running back. So they're going to lean on Marcus Carroll, who's been a little productive, but his best game was UMass. Like, I can't even get a good read on how good he could be. Mookie Cooper is doubtful. Caden Green is questionable. O-line. Defensive end Joe Moore is out. Like, this is all the recipe for, like, Bama's just going to roll. And that's why I think that line has moved from 13.5 to 16.5.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised it hasn't moved up more. It probably shouldn't, just the way Alabama has played over the past couple weeks. I just think that you're going to finally see a complete game from Alabama that you haven't seen since maybe that Wisconsin game. I think they're going to get back to form in terms of, I don't know what's gone on the past couple weeks. I don't know what happened at the locker room at halftime of that Georgia game, but since then it's been a nightmare. But like you said, that Mizzou came out with that injury list, and you had 13 players on the injury list, including 5 starters that were either doubtful or questionable. And like, listen, Norfleet, the tight end, he's questionable. Caden Green, like you said, Mookie Cooper just had his career high in receiving yards against Auburn, and now he's going to be banged up and out. But yeah, it does start with Brady Cook. I think Bama rolls in this one, man.
One note for Bama, they will be without Keon Sabb, it sounds like, for a little while, and Red Morgan is listed as probable, but it's a lot of youth Bama's leaning on in that secondary, and that's where I said, like, if Brady Cook were to go, I think this game on. This is a game. Yeah. If Drew Pine starts, I don't see it. All right,
still more as a starter.
Drew Pine?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he was also competing with a lacrosse player for quarterback at Notre Dame who went to Bama. How'd that work out? All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC. First, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And look, if you're a college football fan, NFL fan, start your year with a big return over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, you can head to FanDuel and enjoy so much of what they got going on there. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, few live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And right now, the special they got going for our FanDuel listeners, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. Check out some of the great lines they got this weekend. We told you the ones we like. Ole Miss minus the 20.5 against OU. Arkansas minus the 6.5 at Mississippi State. Or do you want to take Mississippi State money line? That's what Marler gave us. Mizzou at Bama. Like we said, that line was 13.5 earlier in the week. Now up to 16.5 minus for Bama. So all those lines up there for you at FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app once you get signed up. It is FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book. All right, we dive back into it with Chris Marler. 2 games remain here in the SEC, Marler, and to me, they're the most intriguing of the weekend. And yes, the first one we're going to touch on is the line that is minus 18.5. And yet I am so intrigued at 3:15 Central as number 5 Texas goes on the road at number 25 Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia magic. It has been a thing this year in the SEC. Can they keep it rolling? And how does Texas respond? Do they pick themselves up off the map after losing to Georgia last week? I get Texas is supposed to be the game where they bounce back and look great, and they might. But man, Clark Lee taking over that defense and scheming, I got to think they're going to have a plan on how to slow down Quinn Ewers in Texas.
Yeah, first and foremost, apologize to everybody with the construction going on outside the apartment right now. This is
you don't hear anything.
Perfect, good. Okay, here's the deal. Stop sleeping on Vandy for one.
Right.
Like I saw, and also every single one of you idiots that has an AP vote that decided to wait until this week to put them at just 25, like they beat Bama and Kentucky both games. They were a double-digit underdog. Those uniforms are pretty clean, by the way. A double-digit underdog. One of them on the road when Kentucky was coming off a bye week as well. And then talk about the Bama game. The reason they beat Alabama, it was not a fluke. It was not a bunch of turnovers. It was not like a pick six type situation or kick six type situation. It was a pick six, not a kick six situation. The thing is, like, they went in with a game plan and beat Alabama flat out. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. The thing that worries me the most about this game for them is the secondary for Vandy. When you look at some of the numbers, they rank 107th in completion percentage allowed. They rank 86th in quarterback passer rating, and they rank 83rd in yards per play allowed. You look at a Texas offense that ranks, in the top 20 nationally in passing yards, total yards, completion percentage, yards per attempt, and quarterback rating. I think this is a good spot for a get-right game with Texas. I hope, as we all do, it would be awesome to watch Vandy do this one more time. I'm not touching the line. The 19 points seems like a lot. It does feel like it's one of those situations. And because here's the thing, too. As bad as that Texas team looked last week against Georgia at times, you know what didn't look bad? Was the defense. And the defense still ranks in the top, near the top in the conference in almost every category, and then also nationally in several as well. So I like Texas. I'm not going to touch the 19 points. Just not going to do that. But I would love some Diego Pavia magic.
What did Vandy do right out of the gates against Bama?
I don't know. I was watching a different game.
They
turned it on. They're down 14-0.
They went right down the field and scored. And then they got the stop on Bama and got the pick six. Like, they sent a message. How about this on the Longhorns? Slow out of the gate. Texas has scored just one touchdown in the first quarter over the last 3 games and was shut out in the last 2. I
didn't know that.
So if Vandy comes out, Vandy gets the ball first, they go down the field and score, and then they get a stop. It's the wave, the Vanderbilt wave. That momentum starts going. Let's see, man.
Well, also, Gordy, it's that same thing of like getting these teams in familiar unfamiliarities where it's just like, dude, if Texas sees themselves down late, we don't know how they're going to respond. We don't know how they're going to respond on the road in front of this crowd, especially. Listen, this is a place that is very, very blah in terms of what can happen and from the what do you call it, like from the opposing team and fan base. Like, it's hard to get momentum in your favor in this place. Yeah. So it could happen, man.
Texas will probably have more fans there. I got to think a lot of Longhorn fans said, "Hey, trip to Nashville. Let's go." Yeah. So you're picking? Are you picking Texas to cover that 18.5? Or are you staying?
I'm not touching that.
I look, that line's so big. Vandy money line, just make a bet. Like, that's the value you're going to get on that. Come on. Like, and if they pull it off, geez, I've been winning a lot lately. I'm going to eye that one. We'll see where we are by Saturday. All right, last game, the big one is the 2 undefeateds in the conference, 6:30 Central on ABC. It's number 8 LSU at number 14 Texas A&M from Kyle Field and College Station. Aggies -2.5. I will be there, so shout out to any Aggie LSU fans out there. Hit me up on social media, and I'll come drink your beer and eat your food. How are we feeling this, Marler? I mean, this is one where I feel like just the vibes of where these two teams are. They lose their opener, and then they've gone on a run since. But the vibes for me feel like this is where LSU should be in year 3 under Brian Kelly. Like, all the previous LSU head coaches have done this. Coach O, Les Miles, Nick Saban. Not saying they're going to win a championship this year, but they're in position to compete for one. Whereas I look at A&M a little bit more on the you've played above your head. Like they're ahead of schedule. Now that could go two different ways. A&M can lose a couple games down the stretch, go 9-3, but at the end of the day, you still pat Elko on the back and go, dude, hell of a first year. Awesome. Like, in other words, it doesn't feel like they're supposed to win this game. Now, if they do, I'll come back on Monday and say, more power to you. He's like, you're a hell of a team. And the way your schedule sets up, y'all going to make the playoff. Dude. But for LSU, this to me feels like a much bigger game for Brian Kelly. Like, this is one, he can't lose this one. Because now you literally go from playoff talk to, yeah, I hear the Outback Bowl is nice this time of year. Like, it feels like this is a bigger game for LSU.
Yeah, it is. That's why it feels that way. I don't think it's a must win for LSU to get into the playoff. I think that if they win next week, they're going to be, knocking down the door of getting into the playoff. It's very interesting because I don't think anyone thought these two teams would be playing in this late in the season for the right to the number one overall spot in the conference. Man, here's the thing. LSU has been I'm very high on LSU right now for this week, especially, and for most of the games they're going to play the rest of the year, except for one in the second week of November. We'll get to that later. But in this game, they've lost their last 3 trips to College Station, including the one in 2020, which I still can't wrap my head around, where they lost by 15, right? This is a team where for A&M, it's like, man, it feels like they've played all of their big games at home. They struggled a little bit last week when they played Mississippi State. They had a road game at Florida in week 3. You had the neutral site game against Arkansas. You won that game by 4. It feels like to me we are putting a ton of stake and a ton of credit into this A&M team because of what they did to a very inflated number 9 ranked Missouri team. Like, we saw them on national TV where no other games were on, it felt like, and they beat a top 10 team like a drum. Connor Wigman came out, was outstanding, 18-22 in that game. Dude, Connor Wigman has started 4 games this year. He has 4 total touchdowns, I think, and 3 interceptions. Like, he has been very, very mediocre a lot of times in those games. The run game's been fine. But the thing about LSU, man,
it's the other way. It's 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Thank you. So the other thing is, it feels like I like Le'Veon Moss. I like the A&M receivers. I think that's a good matchup. I cannot wait, just like every other college football fan and NFL scout, cannot wait to watch Nick Scorton against Will Campbell and Emory Jones. That's going to be awesome. But the thing that and also, by the way, Braden Swinson, one of the best pass rushers in the country, going up against an A&M team that ranks like 3rd in the SEC in sacks allowed. So there's matchups galore in this one. The one I keep going back to that I can't seem to get over is it feels like A&M, we know what they can be and what they are and what their ceiling is. Their ceiling was against Missouri. And their basement, especially under the lights on a national stage, was what we saw against Notre Dame. We've already seen those two things happen. With LSU, it feels like this is a team that is somehow getting healthier going into the month of November. You might get those receivers back. You lost Harold Perkins and the defense got better. Whit Weeks is like a budding star right now. Not just because of his country accent, but dude, I told you there were 6 games and there were 3 underdogs that I think were winning outright this weekend. This is the 3rd one. I think LSU goes into College Station, gets a big win. My favorite quote of the year that seems to keep coming true, J.D. Pickell told me after media days, he said he talked to Brian Kelly, and I think it was a very quick off-the-cuff response. He asked him like how things were looking, and he said, I'm pretty effing good in year 3. And we're in year 3, and that seems to be very, very true for Brian Kelly and LSU.
Yeah. I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, oh, well, but I mean, they could really have 3 losses with that South Carolina game. And I'm like, yeah, but they easily won the USC game. They had win in the 4th quarter with all the momentum, felt like they were going to win it. I was there. So, look, we could do the what if on everything. I saw somebody, Bama's only 3 plays away from being undefeated. Okay, great. But you got 2 losses. Like,
they're also very close to being 2-5. Like, what?
I always say, like, you are what you are, right? Like, your schedule is where you're supposed to be. But I don't know. Again, I don't want it to come across that I'm hating on A&M. Kyle Field, look, I know they pulled up that clip of Garrett Nussmeier from the Manning Passing Academy over the summer. He was asked about the college football video game and the toughest places to play. And he said, yeah, Kyle Field's good, but it's not as loud as Death Valley. Breaking news, quarterback at school thinks his school is better. Okay, fine. But, like, to me, this is like arguing whatever. Like, which Maserati looks better, the red or the green one? They're both tough places to play.
The red one.
It's going to be loud. And I expect Kyle Field to bring it. I think they're going to make a difference at times in this game. But I will say this, Marler, Chris Hilton, as of this recording, they still list him as questionable. We've not seen him all year. As good as Garrett Nussmeier this passing game has been, the week they get their deep threat back in Hilton, it's going to make this offense, take the top off the defense even more. It's scary to see. And now LSU's running the football with Caden Durham and the defense. Blake Baker seems to have all the pieces in place now. It's a scary LSU team. They're going to have to prove it this weekend. You have to go win this game no matter what. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you win by 20 or win by 1. Just survive in advance and get out with the win. But if they do, we're going to be talking about this LSU team as a real threat in the grand scheme of the national landscape. On the flip side, A&M, their dominant run game, Maury Daniels, Levy, and Moss, it's old school, right? Like this feels like dominant run game and strong defense. That's how Mike Elko draws it up, and why not? Why can't they play for a championship? So
I just real quick too on what you said about Nussmeier. Shout out to SEC Mike for that bullshit. Sheesh, almost said it, but I didn't. Look at me go. Clip of him posting that. That was close. But here's the thing, man. And I think everyone knows that Kyle Field is awesome. Like it is an awesome environment, and it's really cool that that's been on display. And it's almost like that's starting to become what the association of Texas A&M is, more than all the weird finger guns and whatever else. But here's the thing: if you have to manufacture motivation, in my opinion, you've already lost. And that whole idea of like, okay, noted, like. Yeah, the pearl clutching that, like you mentioned, like I cannot believe that Garrett Nussmeier didn't say that a different stadium was louder than his own home stadium. Like, what are you talking? Like, I think it's
years ago when I think it was Devin White or somebody at LSU. They were playing Bama, and they're like, he's like, I think we can beat him. I think we're better than. They're like, oh, you just gave Bama bulletin board material. I'm like, as if Bama was like, man, we were going to beat them before, but now we're really going to try hard.
Right? So stupid, man. Yeah.
Real quick, give me your what were your 3 upset specials again?
LSU, Kentucky, in order: Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State.
Wow. You know what a parlay on that would pay out, right?
I'll look it up right now. I'm glad you brought it up.
FanDuel.com, folks. Go check them out. Yeah, man. It's going to be a fun weekend. I know people are like, the matchups aren't as fun this weekend. Dude, this is when some of these games are going to be more fun than you're thinking, I think.
Dude, real quick on this, because I was thinking about this like we haven't talked about this hardly at all week. We did our episode of Fourth and Wrong. After you're done listening to this, you guys should go check it out. But we did our episode of Fourth and Wrong the other day, and we brought up the fact that it was like, dude, you have Miami, Florida State. That Colorado Cincy game is pretty good. BYU's going to UCF in a game they're 7-0 and they're not favored in it. How about Nebraska, Ohio State with some storylines there? Penn State going on the road at Wisconsin at night. Oregon, Illinois is a ranked matchup. Navy is undefeated and playing Notre Dame. Like, there's games everywhere in this weekend that I think, like, if you are a good college football fan, no free ads or anything like that, but you better have blank tube TV and go get the 4 screens up, because it is going to be great all day long, man. I'm so excited this week.
Yeah, I have a cable service and I have blank tube TV. I do both.
What are you making off this thing?
No,
what are you?
I'm loaded.
You selling Girl Scout cookies on the side again?
By the way, Mike Elko saying there's $10 million in cash on the line between A&M and LSU.
Okay. For what?
Well, what he's saying is, like, if Nick Scorton has a monster game, he'll move up in the first round. If Will Campbell has a monster game, he'll move up in the first round. I just like that coaches can, instead of their proverbial talk, they can straight up say money's on the line. Why not? Hey, put a bounty on the players? Why not? Let's just put on the
Go
pool.
Saints.
Yeah, do that. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you, Marler, for helping us preview the week. And hey, for your second listen, you can check out Chris Marler. Locked On Gamecocks does a good job there. And we'll talk to you guys on Monday, giving you our winners and losers of the weekend. But for now, for Locked On SEC, I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.